Everyone, welcome to my channel where we discuss astrotheology in our actual timeline. And I promised you guys this information about Kobe Bryant and how his whole life really was really esoteric in symbolism. So when I started looking into it, I started to realize that this is all tying to the rites of spring, which is the Dionysus rites of spring, which is in the Fantasia movie. And if you've been following my channel, you would know that the rites of spring is an important feature and how this all aligns to the spring equinox. And the spring equinox was always done in the constellation Aries, which is like the Passover, right? So it's all to do with ascension. So his symbolism, when I started looking into his death and just the numerology, obviously with his number 24, I want to tie this all into how this is kind of playing out in our timeline. And I'm not sure how this happens. I don't know if these people are picked to use the symbolism in their whole life, like they're just like a upgraded player in this game, and then they're used to show us the symbolism so that we can see it, and therefore we can start to see like they're communicating with us in a way, or are their deaths like they just leave the stage, like exit the stage left, like do they really actually die? It's all coded, so to me it's kind of starting to be like, well, what's really happening? So I don't know, that's you to decide, but all I'm showing you is how it's really heavily coded to the ancient rites of spring, which all has to do with ascending to a higher level of consciousness. And you end up drinking the wine, which is the ambrosia, which to me is the yeah, urine therapy, which I've discussed, the ambrosia. And this is the nectar of life. And there's kind of his whole life is showing us this, and it's also tying into Mount Vesuvius, which is in Italy. And I want to go into its eruptions and the historical events of that mountain. So, well, that volcano. So let's get into it. Now, what was funny was I was talking to a client about one of my previous videos that I was doing about Vulcan and Vulcanalia Day, which is August 23rd. And she goes, "Oh, hey, do you know that that's Kobe Bryant's birthday?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't realize that." And so when I started to look into it, that's when I started to realize is how his whole life is like total like esoteric symbolism, the whole friggin' thing. So the number 24 is the symbol for Jupiter. Jupiter is Zeus. The alchemic metal that goes with Jupiter is tin. So, we get the Tin Man, which is the Tin Man represents, in my mind, the one that has no heart, right? So he has no heart, and he's like the zombie human that doesn't have a heart, and he becomes like transhuman, right? So that's number 24. Zeus is in a way, my interpretation of Zeus is that he wants you to get stuck in this realm, right? He gives you good luck on your charts, like he gives you good fortune because you're working in this realm. But when you start to see through the illusion of this realm, he's not too happy about that, right? So he doesn't want you to see that. Okay. Now we have this Jupiter Neptune conjunction coming up in April 12th, and of this year, and it hasn't happened for 166 years. I'll do a whole nother video on that. I tried to map it back to the original Noah's flood. I went back in Stellarium to see if there was a pattern with other planets matching when they conjunct on the tail of the whale. Now, why is the tail of the whale, I've explained to you why it's important because of the equatorial grid and the three guided stars that come down and cross and point to that location of the sky. It's where the spring equinox happens, is at that the sun is like on the tail of the whale, right? So that's the age of Pisces. It used to happen in the age of Aries, which is the Passover of the Lamb. Okay, so it's like the sacrifice of the Lamb, which is what is to do at spring. So there's this sacrifice that happens in the spring ritual, and this is why you get this, this kind of association with these pagan rituals as sacrificial, right? It's like there's this sacrifice to the lamb at spring. It has to do with ascension. It has to do with the cycle of winter ending. Okay, so that it's like basically winter ends, that the sacrifice is done, and then you go into the spring. So the rites of spring is obviously with rebirth. So it's ascension. And this all ties into astrology with the right ascension. It's measured on the spring equinox. Right ascension is basically the Ra. Okay, so the eye of Ra, it's all happening at the spring equinox. So everything is about the spring equinox. And so this is why I'm so like, whoa, this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction coming up is really, really important. And there's a mythology that I found out about Atlantis that ties into that. Sorry, I'm rambling all over the place here, but I'm going to get back to Kobe Bryant. But the whole thing is, this is all tying into astrology, and it's happening this year on this, right around the spring equinox. This really amazing Jupiter, which is Kobe Bryant is representing Jupiter. He's number 24. Okay, so we know that we have this huge, great American eclipse happening in 2024, and the Paris Olympics in 2024 is the alchemic symbol for Jupiter, right? And he is number 24. So Jupiter and Poseidon, who's Neptune, has some pretty interesting history back in Atlantis, which I just recently found out, and I was pretty excited to share this with you guys because this is why why I'm so like my intuition is so high about this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction happening on April 12th. On March 20th or 21st, the spring equinox, the sun is not in between the two fish of Pisces. It's further along around where the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction is on April 12th. So that is now where the spring equinox is. It's no longer in Aries like it was in antiquity. Okay, so the Passover of the sacrifice of the lamb is not really happening. It's more like now it's in the fishermen, which has to do with Jesus, right? So we're in the age of Jesus, which is the age of Pisces, which is spirituality. So when you are going into astrology and trying to understand how the right ascension is, calculated, they're saying here, okay, let's try to explain this. This has to do with the angular distance. It's also known as the Ra. So I think this is even tying into the eye of Ra. Okay, so the Ra is the right ascension and how it's all calculated. So the right ascension is measured from the sun at the March equinox, the first point of Aries, which it originally was, which is the place on the celestial sphere where the sun crosses the celestial equator from the south to north at the March equinox and is currently located in the constellation Pisces. Okay, so they're explaining how the spring equinox is all how really you're measuring where stars are in the sky through the right ascension. So you can go on Wikipedia and watch this video. They show it to you because it's really hard to explain because it's like a globe, an angle, the Earth's angle and everything. You need to see it, and then they measure it backwards to the 0 hour, and then they go up for the inclination and the so that's how they measure it on the zenith. Okay, so anyhow, it's all mathematical, but I just wanted you to understand that why it's so important, how important the spring equinox really is. Now, the spring equinox is part of the cardinal cross. The cardinal cross is ruled by Capricorn and Cancer. Okay, so that's Saturn, the devil, Capricorn, and Cancer, the gateway of man, the manger of Jesus, the moon. Okay, so Cancer and Saturn, which is Capricorn and Cancer, is the feminine axis on the cardinal cross. They rule the equinoxes. Now, the male axis is Aries and Libra, which rule the equinoxes. Okay, so you get the spring equinox and the fall equinox. So this is why the cardinal cross is so esoteric, and hence why the priests are called cardinals, because it's aligning to Mother Nature's, cycles. So it's not man-made; it's to do with the earth. Poseidon, who's Neptune, he had a wife that had 10 sons, 5 sets of twins. They had other children too, but I'll go into the mythology of that another time. Each son was given one part of Atlantis to rule, and it worked for generations. Atlantis was a peaceful place, a truly utopian society where wisdom prevails. The legend of Atlantis ends with the wrath of Zeus, that's Jupiter. Apparently, the citizens of the city became greedy, corrupt, and they let their emotions get the best of them. Similarly to what we're living, right? How our society is like actually losing its morality. So Zeus summoned all the gods and decided to teach Atlantis a lesson. Sadly, the story ends there. So it is unknown how and if Zeus destroyed the city. There are several modern theories that try to explain the existence and the location of this mythical and utopian city. We will delve into some of these plausible and popular ones. The city of Atlantis and the term utopia that Plato used had a huge impact on the work of Thomas More, who wrote his own book called Utopia. More lived in the 16th century, and he was inspired by travelers in America. His books described an imaginary and fictional land, which he calls the New World. So like the New World Order, right? So you see how we get the similarity to this story. Furthermore, Utopia had an impact on another writer passionate about utopian societies, Sir Francis Bacon. Bacon wrote a book called The New Atlantis, where he also described utopian society located in the western coast of America. Now, I don't know if you guys have dug into Atlantis. I've done a huge dive on all that, and I really do believe it's like off the coast of Florida, Cuba, and it probably went really far north, up, like there was a whole continent there. Okay, so some believe it's off the coast of Africa. There's all these different theories. But the point is, it has mythology to do with Jupiter and Neptune, right? So there's like Neptune is the other realm. It's your shamanic state. It's the Christ consciousness. And, I've said that point of the spring equinox, the right fish, represents Neptune. Neptune and Jupiter both rule Pisces, right? And Pisces are the two fish. So in my interpretation of it is it's all to do with belief systems. So it's either your belief system is in the institutional religion, which I believe is all a trap to keep you locked in this realm, because it's all to do with guilt, like Christ was killed because of your sins, and all this. It's a big guilt trip, right? And they keep you in this lower consciousness, thinking that you need to be saved because you're a terrible person and something's got to come and save you, right? So it's not empowering, right? It's making you taking the power away from you and putting it to someone else, right? So basically all religions do that. It's like you need a middleman to get you to God. Okay, so, but with Neptune, he's teaching you to reach God through your dream state, through your shamanic ability to go into your dreams and connect to the higher realm through your dreams. And that's how the ancient native tribes would heal their tribes. They would have these visions, they'd go into their dream world, and then they would get, an apparition from God, the higher source, and they would tell, the tribe what they had seen. Okay, so this is really a separation of religious beliefs between Zeus Jupiter and Neptune, Poseidon. And so we see how, the Atlantis is really representing our own society. It's like we're going through this new Atlantean kind of reset, because Atlantis had to be reset because people lost their morality. So with this Jupiter Neptune conjunction happening, I think this is really, really a battle, okay, between these two consciousnesses. It's not, oh, good luck, Jupiter's coming, and oh, he's on Neptune. Oh, that's cute. You can, dream about your visions. It's a little bit more it's a little bit more deeper than that. There's a huge history to this, and it's bringing us back to these times, okay? So where the reset happens on Atlantis, and that's really what we're going through, and the new world. Well, they want the reset to be the new world, right? But the new world was really Atlantis's name. It was utopian world, okay? So we have to heal from this. We have to see what's coming and understand it, and just, be the watchers. But anyhow, it's all exciting because it's happening this year. I've been re-listening Barbara Marciniak's videos, and she has made it very clear in a few of them that we decide our timeline. There's more than one timeline, and it's really what you resonate with. So I don't want to kind of project all doom and gloom, because it's not the timeline that I want to believe in. I want to believe that we're going to this magical realm, right? So, but at the same time, I know the earth resets itself. And this has to happen for the cleansing. So it's not about really fearing it. It's about actually understanding it, and kind of like being appreciative of this opportunity to be able to kind of push through the negativity and get to the higher self, right? So I want to understand what is going to maybe come for the planet, so that we can prepare ourselves mentally and see that, you can prepare what you need to do in your life to kind of prepare for all this, right? So what she did mention, that there could be floods, not a big like flood of Noah's flood, but something to represent the flood. And she did say in her videos that New York or Florida could be a likely spot for these to happen. Okay, so I just want to put that out there, because this theme has come up before, right? This flood theme, and to do with Neptune. Now we know that outside Mar-a-Lago, Trump has a Neptune statue. Okay, we also know that there's a Neptune statue off the coast of the Canary Islands. We also know that Florida represents a lot to do with Atlantis, right? So these are just things that I want to kind of make people aware of, and trying to figure out when this possibly could happen. I was thinking maybe it was to do with Valentine's Day, because David Bowie had done a video about that, and all to do with New York, but it didn't happen. But there's more things that are happening in the sky now that are representing floods. Now, one of the big ones is the south and north nodes are realigning into Aries and Libra, which is Mars and Venus, which was happening at Valentine's Day, right? We had a Mars-Venus conjunction on Valentine's Day, but they also rule the male axis of the cardinal cross. The last time they were in that location was in 2024, and there was huge devastation of hurricanes in the United States, and flooding. I think 3,200 people died. Okay, so this is reoccurring this year, starting in June, and it's going all the way. I think one leaves the position in December, and the next one, the North Node or the South Node, leaves on the following June. So we have like from June to June, or June to December of this year, we have the same alignment with the North and South nodes as in 2004, with all the hurricanes happened. Okay, so I just want people to understand that because of that and because of the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction, we're getting a lot of water flooding themes. Okay, so I just trying to put it all together so we can kind of prepare. Now, Kobe birthday was August 23rd. So there's two festivals. One is to do with the volcano, Vulcan, right? And I just, I've mentioned before, this ties into Christ consciousness. That was in the Secret Teachings of Manly P. Hall, was explaining that. And also, I was listening to Barbara Marciniak, and she was saying the Anunnaki called their planet Vulcan. Okay, so this is really, really important. Okay, there's like Christ consciousness and then the Anunnaki tying into August 23rd. And we know August 23rd is when Washington, D.C. has the Virgin Mary over top of it in the sky. Okay, that's why they aligned the whole Washington Triangle to that time of the year. Now, the other festival is called Nemesa, and this is to do with the goddess Diana. And that's also basically the Virgin Mary. Okay, and this is all to do with the moon worship. And this was in the Fantasia movie where they walk with their lanterns in the moonlight around a lake. Okay, because the lake is the nectar of the gods, the mirror, or whatever. It's all to do with worshiping the moon. Okay, so moon worship and then fire, volcanoes. Okay, this is what August 23rd represents. And it's to do with the Tree of Life and the reflecting pool around the Washington Monument. This is all aligning to the Washington Triangle. Okay, so this is all very, very symbolic. So it's kind of a, he's born on that day, plus he wears the number 24. And I'm going to go into more symbolism. It's crazy. He's all tied into Dionysus and the Rites of Spring, which is the Fantasia movie. He also, when he was in high school, his shirt number was number 33. Okay, so we know 33 is a Freemason number, and we also know that it's because every 33 years the solar and the lunar calendars align. They're off by 2 days. Okay, but that's why the number 33, it's the two pillars, right? The sun pillar and the moon pillar, and you got to balance these two energies of feminine and masculine so that your brain gets to theta and you get on the middle path, right? And you get the keys from Saturn. It's all to do with your own body. Okay, it's all aligning. The planets, the celestial patterns in the sky is aligning to you and your brain and your body. This is weird. They have Bryant at the premiere of the Pirates of the Caribbean. You guys know it's all about the ships and the pirates, right? It's called At the World's End in 2007. So that's the picture they use, right? Okay, so that's symbolic. Then, with his death, Bryant and his daughter, Gianna, received the Eucharist together just hours before they died. So the Eucharist is like the nectar of the gods, right? It's the Holy Communion of the Lord's Supper. Okay, so, it's just like, is this for real? Like, it's just crazy. So then Bryant assigned himself a nickname of the Black Mamba, citing a desire for the basketball skills to mimic the eponymous snake's ability to strike with 99% accuracy. Okay, so we get the snake. So this is all to do with, the Ophiuchus constellation, the 13th zodiac, to do with the snake. It ties into Dionysus. Okay, I'll get into that. Then he says he began referring to himself as Vino to describe how his play had been like aging like a fine wine. Okay, so, so it goes back to the nectar of the gods, right? Okay, and according to Forbes, Bryant's 680 million in career earnings was the most ever by a team athlete during the player's career. Okay, so yeah, so he was the wealthiest athlete basically. So he was at the pinnacle of his career, and his symbology is just off the charts. Yeah, and I started aging my wine. My natural wine. I started aging because I started listening to this girl called Monica Schultz, and she's all into aging urine and the how potent it is, and how when it's older, it basically is like instant healing. Like if you put it on your skin, like you instantly heal. But it has to age. You know, the longer it ages, the more powerful it is because it turns crystalline or something. So anyhow, it's funny that he says that he's like aged wine, right? So I'm like, yeah. Every time I see that now, I'm like, I wonder what they're talking about. Okay, so there's the black mamba. It's a type of snake. Now, he was also a singer, right? And he hung around like, you know, George Bush and Obama, he was all in with this. And of course, he represented Coca-Cola, right? Because it seems like they all represent Coca-Cola with Elvis Presley and then Aretha Franklin and the whole nine yards. It's always about Coca-Cola because that ties into the Tree of Life as well. I did a video on that. And then Guitar Hero World Tour. There's music featuring that. Call of Duty, Black Ops with Jimmy Kimmel. He did like a commercial with that. So I went and looked at that, and yeah, there's full of symbolism. He was signed with Nike. He also did lots of rap songs, like he sung as well. And so, he did a lot, kind of, touched on lots of different things, but that's why he became so famous, I guess. But the whole point is they're just constantly using symbolism, the esoteric symbolism. So the Call of Duty Black Ops, they're using the numbers 9/11, or you could see it as November 9th. Here they're showing fire and then the Venus stars on either side. Okay, so that's like ascension. On the helicopter, they're showing 5, 6. This is all to do with DNA, right? It's the way it's shaped. It's 5 and 6. They use the hexagon and the pentagon. Here again, the Venus stars are being shown. The number 32, which is 23 DNA, or the 32 paths on the Kabbalah tree. Okay, here we have the Mamba. He's the black Mamba. He's got it on his gun, so the snake is the gun. Then his other Jimmy has the proud noob, so he's a newbie. Okay, so then they're showing like kind of like a Christ, you know, sacrifice with the guns. And there's a soldier in all of us. Yeah, and then he's letting go of the guns. So, yeah, and you have to find that warrior within you. Another Guitar Hero World, he's just singing. He's in shorts, and I don't know. I couldn't see too much esoteric stuff in that. There's a song here called 3X Dope that he was singing. So at their farewell to the legend, the funeral, I watched the video with his daughter. Um, they had this held on February 24th. Now that brings the numbers 224 and 22. 22, we're in the year 22 right now. 22 is the completion. It's 22 tarot cards, 22 Hebrew letters in the alphabet. Okay, so the number 224 ties into Venus again, because Venus, the synodic orbit, is 224. They also have here, it's kind of weird, the television is the 2 and the 9, so we get the 9/11, and then they also have like a scores going across here, Red Sox and the Twins, which is, I don't know, it's just too bizarre. It's like everything is symbolic. It's just getting crazy. Yeah, and I think Gianna, her number was Mamba 2. Okay, and it was purple, like for ascension. The whole funeral was done with red and white, which is like the rubetto, and that's the colors of the rubetto, the final stage of alchemy, which is fine. But to put that on national TV, red and white for a funeral, it's kind of not normal to have a bunch of red and white flowers or red and white theme at a funeral, in my eyes. Usually it's a little bit softer colors. So that was like really, really esoteric. So I've shown you this painting before, and that's Dionysus with this snake, right? And we know that's the symbolism of the wine. He's like covered in grapes, and that's the nectar, right? Because he's all tied into, well, it's Bacchus or Dionysus. They're basically the same character. Okay, and then there's the bird above, which is, like flying away, representing the phoenix, I guess. And then we have this mountain. So I've seen this painting, this fresco, many times. I've shown you guys this, I think at least once or twice. But what I couldn't believe was this ties into this famous mountain, this famous volcano, Mount Vesuvius. So because he's born on this Volcanelia day, and then he's the snake, and then we have this ancient fresco which has to do with the volcano and the snake, which tying into the rites of spring and Dionysus. So you see how it's all like tied in. It's like it's crazy. And that's why he called himself Vino and thought of himself as aged wine. It's all tying into Dionysus and Bacchus and the wine, the nectar of the gods. So this wall painting depicting Bacchus wearing the bunch of grapes with the panther at his feet. Okay, there's a panther, and most probably Mount Vesuvius, the serpent of Agathodemon. Okay, now what that means is, okay, Agathodemon is your daemon. It's your daemon. It's your spirit guide. Now the Christians have turned this into it's a demon, but it's not a demon. It's your spirit guide. So the serpent is the wise one. It's the good spirit of the wine yard, okay, and the grain fields. Well, it's the good spirit. It's your higher consciousness, okay. So this is all happening in Pompeii, okay, because Pompeii was the town that got buried when this volcano erupted. Saying here, ultimately releasing 100,000 times the thermal energy released by the Hiroshima, Nagasaki bombings. Okay, the cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum were destroyed. Okay, so this is a huge surge, and this happened in 79 AD. Okay, but there's also other eruptions, more recent. The last one in, I think, 1944, right in the World War II was going on. That was the last one. And they're really saying that it could blow any day. Okay, and they're watching it. They're actually trying to get people to move out of the area, and they're giving them monetary incentives to do so. So they're expecting this to blow any day. So that would be devastating because it's right in Italy, and Naples is on one side. It's a very populated area. The Romans regarded Mount Vesuvius to be devoted to Hercules. This is really important, okay? So the historian Dionysius Circulus related a tradition that Hercules, in the performance of his labors, he did the 12 labors, passed through the country of nearby Cuma on his way to Sicily and found there a place called the Phlegraean Plains. Oh, right, these plains. Oh, yeah, the plains of fire. It's like this ground surface that can bubble up and create gases. Okay, and this is close to there as well. The mythology is it was inhabited by bandits, the sons of Earth, who were giants. With the assistance of the gods, he pacified the region and went on. The facts behind the tradition, if any, remain unknown, as does whether Herculaneum was named after it. Okay, so I'm pretty sure he is named, but they're saying here that 88 AD suggests that both Venus, the patroness of Pompeii, and Hercules were worshipped in this region, devastated by the eruption in 79 AD. So, yeah, so it's Venus and Hercules. Okay, so Now, they have, what are they saying here? The Latins also competed for the occupation of Campania. The Etruscan settlements were also in this vicinity. Other peoples of unknown providence are said to have been there at times by various ancient authors. So it's a very, ancient area. So there's lots of emotion and energy, from ancestors that are there and have passed away there. So they're saying the spelling of this mountain is I quench, in the sense of the unquenchable, violence, hurling violence, vestibi, taking advantage of the collateral form, shine, the one who lightens, so kind of like Lucifer, which would be Venus, and the hearth, which is Vesta. Now, they don't really know exactly what date it erupted. They're like, it's all speculation, but the 4 dates that they think could be August 24th, which is the day after Kobe's birthday, October 30th, day before Halloween, November 1st, All Saints' Day, and November 23rd. Okay, so they think that it could most likely be August 24th from the discovery that they've found, okay, with books written about Pompeii and Herculaneum for the general public. Okay, so in 1797, the researcher Carlo Rossini reported that excavations at Pompeii and Herculaneum had uncovered traces of fruit and braziers indicative of autumn, not of summer. So more recently, 1990 and 2001, they discovered fruits again, such as the pomegranate, which the pomegranate, is like, it's like kind of like the fig, like the hanging fig. It represents like the fig, and the remains of victims of the eruption in heavy clothing and large earthenware storage vessels laden with wine. So then we get the wine again. Okay, you see how it's all tied in? So it's like they were doing the harvest for the grapes and the wines. That's when it erupted. So yeah, it's just fascinating. I don't know. It's always the same thing. So they're saying the Emperor Titus of the Flavian dynasty. Now they were not good. They took over Christianity, and anyhow, there's a whole history to that. And they rewrote the Bible, reigning from June 24th, 79 to September 13th, 81. Gammered victories on the battlefield, including the capture of the Temple of Jerusalem and other honors. Okay, so you see how it's all tying into religion. It's you think it's pagan, but it's going back to Christianity. It's kind of always mixing the two together. So there you go. These cities were buried. You should see the pictures of they've uncovered bodies. I'm not going to put that in, but you can go check it out if you want. And yeah, they died instantly. I think the heat from the volcano was 500 degrees, right? So it's like they instantly evaporated from the heat. Hercules was son of the god Zeus. So Hercules is Jupiter's son. And alchemy of themes. Zeus, Jupiter, was also known as Ves, so Vesuvius, the volcano, in his aspect as the god of rains and dews. Hercules was thus alternatively known as Vesuvius, son of Ves. The name was corrupted into Vesuvius. So there you go. It means smoke. So the volcano today, Vesuvius, is still the only active volcano in all of Europe, nicknamed the Sleeping Giant by locals, because Hercules was the giant. So how much do you really know about this volcano? Here's some interesting facts about Mount Vesuvius to help freshen your memory. Vesuvius is unique on the continent. Mount Vesuvius remains at present the only volcano on the European mainland to be active, sitting on the Midwest coast of Italy. It's more than one volcano. Wow. So anyhow, yeah, if that thing blows, Europe is toast. The economy anyhow, and many people will perish because they can't escape. But they've tried to do like they've created like escape plans, and they do feel like they can get out, I think, within 72 hours. So, but anyhow, it's like, whoa, it's crazy. So that's the peak. It's a big giant hole. Yeah, there's a video about showing what will happen if it erupts. What is Vesuvius volcano erupted in 2020? So here they're saying that the most famous in its eruptions was the 79 AD, the deadliest of European history. And yeah, I've already explained all that. And then they're saying here, at the time, the region was part of the Roman Empire, which is like Rome, which is what Washington's named after. And several Rome cities were obliterated and buried underneath the massive pyroclastic surges of ashfall deposits, the best known being Pompeii and Herculaneum. So, yep. So there you go. Yeah, so here, the total population of both cities was over 20,000. 20,000 people died. Here's the location of it, and you can see like the gas cloud, how far it went. You know, even the gas has just killed people just from the gas coming from it. So pretty amazing. I didn't know anything about this. Now the Forum of Pompeii, with the entrance to the basilica left. So this is the temple of Jupiter, okay, and Mount Vesuvius in the distance. So this whole area was a worship to Jupiter. This is why I'm saying it's just kind of crazy how it's all tying into Jupiter and Neptune. And maybe it is 2024, you know, something will happen then because that's the Jupiter alchemic symbol and it's the second eclipse going across the United States. But the fact that we have a Neptune-Jupiter conjunction happening this year is really, really relevant. So now you got to remember the temple of Jupiter, and they also were worshiping Venus. This is all tying into the Capitoline Hills, okay, which is to do with Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva, which is owl, the wisdom of owl, and Juno, which is Zeus's wife, Hera. You know, so right, it's just yeah, it's crazy. It's all tying into the United States and how the United States was built. So it's all built around this location about, and of course with this mountain and Vulcan. This is all tying into Christ consciousness. This is what Manly P. Hall was saying. Vulcan is angry with Venus and Mars mating, right? Now Venus and Mars rule Aries and Libra, where the south and north nodes are going to be in this year. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. It's like it's all aligning. Like everything that I've been kind of showing you guys with my last videos, it's all kind of, you know, pinnacle and coming closer and closer, and it's all tying in. All of the mythology is tying in to this year and, you know, the next couple of years. It's all kind of like merging. So the temple of Jupiter, the Capitolinum, or the temple of the Capitoline Triad, with the temple in Roman Pompeii at the north end of the Forum, literally dedicated to Jupiter alone. It was built in the mid-2nd century BC at the same time as the Temple of Apollo was being renovated. The Temple of Apollo has to do with the sun, the god, you know, the sun god. This was the area at which the Romans influenced over Pompeii increased, and so the Roman Jupiter superseded the Greek Apollo as the town's highest god. Jupiter was the ruler of the gods and the protector of Rome, where his temple was in the center of the Roman religion and the cult of the state. So, yeah, I'm just kind of like, wow. So Apollo is the goddess Diana's brother. They're the twins. Okay, so it's, yeah. So the moon is all tied into it because Diana is the moon and Apollo's the sun. So that's where the number 33 comes into. So Kobe Bryant is really connected to all of this. As the most important divinity in ancient Rome, many temples were built in honor of Jupiter, or the entire Capitoline triad consisting of Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva, in towns newly conquered by the Romans. Yeah, so this is what the Capitol Hill in Washington is named after. Okay, so they're saying here, in 62 AD, an earthquake shook the city of Pompeii, destroying much of the temple of Jupiter. After this, a much smaller temple of Jupiter became the main seat of worship. And then they're saying the original temple of Jupiter was still awaiting restoration when Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79, burying the town of Pompeii with volcanic dust and ash and pumice stones. The excavated temple can still be seen in Pompeii today. This was the place where people would come to pray to the god Jupiter, which later on became the name of the planet. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there you go. There's huge history. So the Super Bowl had a commercial with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he was Zeus, Jupiter, and his wife Hera, which is really Juno. And they had Neptune in there as well. I'd mentioned this before. So you can see how they're putting the symbolism out in the forefront to do with Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva, which is all tying into the Capitoline Hill triad, which is this is all what this is all about. I had no idea this temple was at the foot of this volcano. I had no idea about this. It's fascinating. It's all tying into August 23rd. I don't know if you guys remember this song from Bastille. So they have a song called Pompeii, and he's looking at the volcano at part of the video, but all that he's running around the city at night. There's nobody around. Every person that he does bump into, they turn and look at him, and their eyes are black. Okay, so it's like they're covered in ash, or they've covered in soot in a way, and it's all about Pompeii and then being buried by the ash, right? So it's interesting that he's created a song about that. That came out in 2013. So Wikipedia is saying that the volcano blew on August 24th, but when you go on this, what happened on this day in history, is actually August 23rd. So, and they're saying it's the feast day of Vulcan. Okay, this is when that destroyed Pompeii. So then, interestingly, in 1305, the Scottish patriot William Wallace is executed for high treason by Edward I of England. Now, he's the guy, Braveheart, right? The Braveheart movie's all about. Okay, so he's a patriot trying to get away from the control of the English Empire, right? So then we also have in 1942 the Battle of Stalingrad, which was 4,000 people died. Sorry, 40,000 people died. Excuse me. Oh my God. And then Osama bin Laden in 1996 issues a message entitled A Declaration of War Against Americans, occupying the land of the two holy places. And then, 2005, Hurricane Katrina forms over the Bahamas, later becoming a Category 5 hurricane. That was devastating, right? So, oh my God, August 23rd. So, the festival of the goddess Diana, which is Nemesa, and then also the festival of Vulcan, which is Vulcanelia Day, is August 23rd. Okay, so this is tying into all of this, which is Kobe Bryant's birthday, August 23rd. So August 23rd is really relevant. And I was just listening to a hypnotist that hypnotized this lady. And the video, I think, is quite popular. And she's explaining about all the earth changes when she's hypnotized. And she comes out of her state and she says, she goes, 823. She says the number 823. And I was just like, wow, that's Volcanolia Day. When she said that, I was like, oh my God. And she kept repeating it. She said, this date, 823. And I'm like, that's August 23rd. And she's talking about all the earth changes, and she's talking about a volcano. Okay, and then somebody writes and says, yeah, she's right about August 23rd. I'm a channeler of dragons, and the dragon, showed me between August 21st and August 23rd of either 2022 or 2023. So I saw many islands in the Caribbean Sea sinking, mega tsunamis, and many earthquakes, a big cleanup. I feel like I know her, like I'm supposed to meet her. Okay, so I'm just like, whoa. So all I'm saying is I'm putting it out there, so you can prepare mentally or physically if you're in any of these areas. So when it happened in 79, August 24th, we had Neptune right on Aldebaran, the eye in Taurus, and Jupiter was on Orion's hammer. This is a really important point. It's one of the equatorial grid alignments coming from the North Pole. Okay, so the Orion's hammer. Okay, so then we had the sun back then. It was on Zavijava in Virgo, but the sun in August now is on Regulus, right? So we had the Mars on the head of Citus, which is the hand of God. Okay, so this is when it happened, the biggest eruption. There was other eruptions, but this was the most devastating. And Venus was in the Lion's Gate between Cancer and Leo. Uranus is on the tail of the whale, as well in conjunction with Pluto. Well, they're not anywhere near that location right now, but it's still very significant that that's where they were then. And the moon was in Capricorn. Saturn was in Aquarius. Well, Saturn is in Aquarius again now. Okay, so that's important too. So yeah, I wonder if the moon in Capricorn, would make sense because that's the feminine cross, right? Cancer and Capricorn. The moon is ruling Cancer. So that's important to understand. So let's go look at August 23rd this year. So we also have Venus in the Lion's Gate. And then you can see now the sun is on Regulus, which is like the king star, right? So I was talking to a client today, and we were talking about this, and we were talking about the Florida Keys, and she said when the tide's high in the fall, like later in the year, it's called the king's tide. And I didn't know that. And it makes sense, right? Because if Aries is ruling the spring, and then Libra is ruling the fall, and the water, it's tying to water. It's like a wave, right? It's like the spring and the fall. It's like the male axis could be pulling these energies between the divine masculine and the divine feminine, because Aries is Mars, the lover of Venus, and Libra is Venus that wants balance, right? So it's like this war going on between these two energies, and it all ties to Vulcan because Vulcan's her husband, and that ties to the volcano. So I'm just like, whoa, this is crazy, so it's all tying to this mythology. And is it going to be many different things, catastrophes, volcanoes and tsunamis, and like, who knows? All I know is it's very symbolic in the sky, and they're showing us the symbolism. Do they want us to create it by seeing it? Maybe we're just supposed to notice it and then say, we wish it to not happen. Maybe that's what we have to, if we don't know, then we can't control it, right? So it's like you can control the weather with your thoughts, and you can say, no, I don't want this to happen, right? So maybe that's our mission, is to work with the elementals and say, no, if they're trying to make it happen, we're saying, no, we don't want it to happen. Remember the Free Guy movie where they're kind of all in a video game and then they start to realize there's a way out and they are trying to get to this magical island that's inside the game that was hidden and it was in the ocean and they're trying to get a bridge to get there. Now, that the bad guy was named Tsunami. That was his name of his company. And then he started to destroy the video game. He started to like collapse it, right? And there was like, earthquakes and, there was all these terrible things. So it's kind of like they're showing us that the more we start to reject this realm, the more the whole thing is going to start to collapse because we're not putting our energy into it anymore. So it kind of has to physically collapse at the same time. It's like there has to be a reset, right? And then the earth is resetting itself. So it's not just the the bad reset, the globalist reset. There's a reset that's happening in nature. And that's not really negative. It's more of a cleansing. It's just that you have to be able to respect the elementals that rule this realm, and we ignore them. We don't have any respect for them in a way because we don't pay attention to them. So I think it's important that we put our thoughts into trying to calm them down, maybe so that these aspects are lessened. It really depends how much fear they get everybody into, right? And with the war in Ukraine right now, that they're just trying to pump out the fear. But I feel like people are rejecting it more. Like people aren't getting so attached to the fear as they were a couple years ago. Saturn's in Capricorn, and we have that Neptune and Jupiter conjunction. It has already happened. Now it's in August. Jupiter is on the tail of the whale. So this is also to do with the beast, the water, the water monster. So it's interesting. Mars is close to the Pleiades. 2023, it's a little different. Mars is on Zavijava, Ascension star, with Mercury, and Venus is on this Hydra head, the snake, but also in the Lion's Gate. So this year is a little bit more intense. And Saturn is back in Aquarius where it was in the year 79. The moon is with Libra, balance. So yeah, it's pretty intense that year too. So who knows? And he was wearing, they showed the number 32 in that video. So with, I don't know when it was war, so who knows? Who knows? All I know is it's pretty intense in the sky. All to do with this symbolism, with the masculine, female energies, with flooding, with volcanoes. There seems to be a lot going on, all relating to the mythology. So we'll just have to wait and see. We know Etna is blowing, and that mountain is all tied to Pluto. The mythology of Pluto is all tied to Mount Etna, and that's your soul. So that one's kind of erupting right now. It just recently erupted. On February 10th, it erupted. So we got lots going on. The world's changing, and she's gonna heal herself from all the trauma that we've caused. But we just have to wait and see and try to project some good energy into it. Now, I want to apologize to you guys. I don't know what the heck is going on with my emails. Like, I send you guys your charts, and then you call me like a week later or 2 weeks later and go, I never received them. And then I'm like, what? And then I retry to send them. They don't get them. Then we need to use another email. It's getting ridiculous. I'm getting blocked, and I don't know if it's just a coincidence because I've had some clients say, well, maybe it's through your website. I won't message you through your website. I'll just email you directly. And even that gets some people blocked. Now, somebody just emailed me today saying that the Gmail was saying that my email doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so it's getting really crazy for me. Like I'm like, what is going on? Yeah, it's saying sent you an email and was returned stating email does not exist. So I'm being blocked, and I really apologize to you guys because I answer my emails every single day. Sometimes I'm a day late. It takes 2 days because I have a busy day or something and I don't get to it. But I do answer my emails every day, and if I do your charts, I have them to you within a week. Maybe I'm late, like eight days, sometimes 9 days, but usually always they're within a week. I get them to you. So if you're not hearing from me, or if you sent me an email and I'm not getting it, try again or send it from another email because maybe they're just like blocking my clients. I don't know. I'm really hoping once I get the new website up, that's going to be all resolved because this is getting really crazy. So you can always message me on YouTube. I usually answer my YouTube comments. I know I'm a little late answering some of them right now, but I usually, you can always message me there. Or if you have Facebook, you can message me there on Messenger. So crystal-tyme on Facebook. So I apologize if anybody's been trying to get in touch with me and you haven't heard from me because it's not my intention. So that's about it. That's Kobe Bryant's decode for me. So wish you guys bliss and hope everybody's doing well out there. Bye.